We're not a Catalonian politics website, and we don't even have a view on whether Catalonia should be independent, but sometimes it's easier to understand the workings and failings of the media if you watch how it behaves on a subject you're not directly and closely involved with. Last week was one of those weeks. Below is a clip from yesterday's edition of Sunday Politics Scotland. It features a man called José Rodriguez Mora, who was introduced to viewers neutrally as simply an academic from Edinburgh University but was in fact instrumental in the creation of a stridently anti-independence Catalonian political party. He was brought on to give voice to what has become the universal media spin on events in Catalonia, that both sides are to blame, that the Catalan government was provocative and irresponsible to call an illegal referendum, and that the only way for the area to achieve independence is through the 1978 Spanish Constitution, despite it expressly forbidding any such action, and its fundamental existence being based on the indissoluble unity of the Spanish nation. So in the striking absence of any useful information in the press, we thought we'd do a little digging and see how that might work. The first point to note is that the Spanish Constitution is, by design, very difficult to amend, placing a series of onerous obstacles in the way of any proposed change. The largest is the requirement for a succession of supermajorities, variously 60% or 67% in Spain's two houses of parliament. Catalan representatives alone have no chance of achieving such a vote, numbering just 47 of the 350 seats in the Congress of Deputies, which is very broadly the Spanish equivalent of the House of Commons. The ruling party of Mariano Rajoy, the Partido Popular PP, implacably opposed to independence or any sort of referendum in Catalonia, currently runs a minority administration in the DOC with just 38% of the seats. So in theory the Catalans, if they could get the support of every opposition party, some of whom also have ambitions of independence, could get quite close to a supermajority in the Congress. However, they would then have to do the same in the upper house, the Senate, where the PP holds 56% of the seats and the total combined opposition just 44%. That's plainly impossible in any practical sense, and even if by some miracle it succeeded, then any amendment would be subject to approval in a referendum of the whole of Spain, which it would undoubtedly lose. In effect, saying the Catalans could achieve independence through the constitution is like saying the SNP could win the same thing for Scotland by persuading the rest of the UK Parliament to vote for it. It's true in a purely abstract theoretical sense, but could never happen in reality. The British press, however, has made no attempt to explain any of this, and has colluded with the official Spanish government line at every turn. The most startling example is the way every UK media outlet has casually and repeatedly asserted its fact that the turnout for the October 1st referendum was 43%. The intention of that, of course, is to suggest apathy and an inconclusive result, but it's a remarkable empirical distortion of both the truth and the most basic principles of language. Hundreds of thousands of votes were seized by the Spanish police on the day, and the best guess is at the percentage of eligible voters who actually succeeding in casting their votes into a ballot box are around 57%. Additionally, large numbers of people turned out to vote but were prevented from doing so by police closing polling stations and removing ballot papers and boxes before they could be used. And we must presume that others were deterred purely out of entirely justified fear. It therefore seems an extremely conservative estimate to suggest that the real percentage turnout, that is, people who went out intending to vote, was at least in the 60s. Of the votes which were able to be counted, over 92% were for independence. Statistically, the percentage in the seized boxes would be the same, which would mean that even counting every single non-voter as a no, at least 51% of the entire eligible electorate voted for independence, a clear and unarguable mandate. For comparison, just 37% of the eligible UK electorate voted for Brexit, and 47% of the eligible Scottish electorate voted to remain in the UK. Even among the Catalan ballots that weren't seized and were properly counted, over 38% of the electorate voted for independence, so despite the Spanish government's best attempts at stealing the votes and violently suppressing turnout, it still has more of a mandate than the UK is leaving the EU on. To see even the best and most diligent of UK journalists not only rejecting these unarguable facts but openly mocking them has been a dismaying and alarming sight. What is happening in Catalonia in 2017 is indisputably an affront to democracy. The result of a referendum conducted with impeccable dignity and propriety under incredible intimidation is discounted, but the people of Catalonia are permitted no legal recourse to achieve their aim. Their democratically elected government has been dissolved for no other crime than trying to discover the will of its people. Their media is being taken over by the state. Their politicians are being imprisoned under medieval treason laws. If it happened in a third world country, it would rightly be regarded as a coup and the UK press would be baying for military intervention. The principles of the UN Charter on self-determination are being ignored by the international community. Countries whose own independence was achieved illegally and with much bloodshed turn their backs on the heroically peaceful Catalans, while the international media parrots laughable, transparently false propaganda on behalf of the Spanish government. You cannot say that people who cast their votes but then had them stolen by riot police didn't turn out. You can't say that those who went to a polling station to vote only to find it smashed up and or closed by the same riot police boycotted the referendum. You can't say that a government given no lawful options is behaving irresponsibly by seeking the best, most peaceful and most democratic solution open to it. At least, not unless you're playing by Madrid rules.